Hey, what's up, everyone? Morey Croson here, and welcome to another edition of the Morey Myles Show. We're going to be going and really getting in depth into some sprinting mechanics on this particular podcast. We've done this in the past where people within different Reddit groups will be posting videos of themselves running, and I just want to be able to provide as much value to the sprinting community as I can. I remember being in a lot of your guys' shoes where you're working hard, trying to figure out what it is that you need to do to be able to take your sprinting to the next level. And I mean, I tell people all the time, like, I wish I had me when I was really playing football, but when I was a young athlete, to make it so I could understand what it was that I need to be able to do. So if this in any way benefits you, I would really appreciate you to be able to like the video, subscribe. We do have different ways that you could even, donate and be able to help the cause here. I know typically I charge for these breakdowns. This is going to be something that is obviously going to be free for the people that are selected within the breakdowns. And really the concept is to be able to give you guys as much information as you can to then be able to apply this information to what it is that you're doing when it comes to sprinting. I tell this to teams all the time when going through and explaining different things that we're seeing within their running, where, I might be talking about a different athlete in that particular example, but just because I'm going in and talking about something wrong that athlete's doing doesn't mean that information cannot be applied to what it is that you're doing within your running. So definitely take this information and utilize it the best way that we can. We'll get right into the video. A lot of times when I do these, I feel like, because I do them for shorts typically, and I just feel like I'm really rushed as I'm doing it. So today I thought it'd be better to be able to make it into a podcast. I mean, I'd love to hear your feedback and hear what you guys have to say about the information. And I wanted to be able to make it so I can kind of slow down a little bit with it, give you guys some more concepts, a better understanding overall within each one of the breakdowns. So one of the things that I would say just to start here, now that we're getting kicked off, again, as we get started here, I just wanted to say that if you like the information, like the video, subscribe, share it, all that type of stuff really makes a big difference for us. And then we'll have some links down below if you guys want to, help the cause, donate to the cause, all that type of good stuff. But we have an athlete who is, and this is something that I see a lot where people will either send in videos or be doing videos when they're in a 4-point stance without blocks. I don't think this is very beneficial. I think it's better for you to be in a 3-point stance when practicing. If you don't have the opportunity to use blocks, whether you're a track athlete or not, do a 3-point stance, just because this similarity with how your body alignment is going to be more similar to in a 3-point stance than it's going to be in a 4-point stance, right? When you're in a 3-point stance, you're going to have that same degree of like forward lean and a bit of an imbalance feel, where when you're in a 4-point stance with no blocks, it's very hard to be able to replicate that same type of action. Okay. Now, with that being said, I would say in general, it seems like we could be in a position where the foot is a little bit closer to the hands, right? I think that the further forward you could have that back foot, the better off you're going to be, just because it's going to help you in being able to get your leg up and through. Now, from this position, this person mentioned that they are a long distance runner, have more of a long distance background. And so when I'm looking at this, it just kind of stands out that I feel like they're trying to be a little bit too long with the steps, right? And really trying to reach and pick up a lot of distance. He talks about like not feeling very explosive as he's going through. Well, big part of what makes it so you're explosive is the quickness within it, right? So within the mentality in this start, you want to be really thinking quick, right? We don't want to end up limiting too much of your distance per step, but you already have naturally pretty good range within your steps. I would really just be thinking about quickness. And then also we have to be able to get much more stability within the legs, especially it looks like within this left leg, we're just not absorbing very well here. I mean, body position wise looks good. A lot of times when you can think about having quicker action within the legs, I do think being able to really connect that to the arms makes a big difference. Okay. And especially going back, like when you're going back here, at this point, we don't need this much range coming back with the arms. We really want to be coming quick and getting those elbows through in the front side in order to help you with your start. Okay, we have another block start here. Better job of being quick. And, obviously this one, we actually have a block, which is important. Now we're on the opposite side of the spectrum, right? Based off of this second step, we're just not getting very much knee drive, right? We need to be able to get more height in the knees as we're coming out with that second step. The first step is pretty good distance, get the foot down quickly, gets the arms up and through. A lot of good things within that first step. Second step here, we're just a little bit rushed, right? We can't be rushing our acceleration. Acceleration is a very patient part of running, right? You have to be able to just maintain that level of control and that level of patience in order to make it so you can get into your top speed. This is a good step here. Third step, being able to get good range. Fourth step, yeah, we're not getting great push off within the right leg, right? So even you could see the range of motion within the toe and the ability to push, right? See that left foot, how he's getting good extension here, okay, where he's getting that range within the toe. You could even kind of see the push off as he's getting there. Boom, that's a nice little push off that he has within that left foot. Right side, as he's going to push off, there's nothing there. No push off within that right leg. And so his body's learned to compensate with that. And he doesn't get as much range within his left hip flexor, his left leg, the left side, front side mechanics, which is impacting the ability to get fast, right? When you want to be able to improve your speed, it's going to be one of those things where you have to take positive step after positive step after positive step in order to make it so you get a consistent building of speed. If you have one step that you're getting good range, good quickness, and the next step you're slowing it down, then you're trying to get more range, and then you're getting a little quicker, and then you're going to have more of this type of a running pattern where it wants to be more consistent within your body and being able to address the issues within your particular body. And this is why I think it's important to, talking about my program, something like improving a range of motion within an ankle, being able to better strike within a leg. It's hard to be able to really notice and pinpoint these types of things if you don't have a coach, right? And just because I saw that for him, and I think he could get a lot of benefit from just working on those two things. The integration process of that and being able to see where are there potential hiccups along the way is what I do. Like this is what I do all the time. So, to some of you guys, you might be watching this like, oh man, like, that's really good in being able to isolate that or find that out. But for me, this is what I do on a daily basis. As people come in, I'm constantly watching. That's where the eye comes in too. Like, if you're a coach maybe and you're watching this and thinking, how can I learn how to be able to do this? Well, you have to have more exposure to watching this type of stuff, okay? And then that makes a really big difference. Here, we have a little bit too long a foot contact. Let's go back. Let me see what he said. He's talking about over pushing, and you could say that he's potentially over pushing. I don't know where he is actually talking about when it comes to the over pushing, because over pushing can apply to two different things. One could be as he's striking the ground, which I would say he's not getting a very good foot strike. He's not doing a great job of being able to get his legs through and therefore being able to strike the ground. So in that regard, I wouldn't say necessarily with the over pushing, but in terms of the backside and how he's taking too long and getting his foot off the ground, I would say he's potentially over pushing there. What happens here for him is, I would say, probably a lack of range of motion within the quads, which is impacting his ability to really get the right amount of extension within the hip, the right amount of strength within hip extension. And so because of that, he's overcompensating by trying to use a lot of his calves to be able to push off here, right? We would want to be able to see, like for this step here, we'd like to be able to see length on the front side to then be able to really strike down with a good amount of force. So then he could transfer off the ground effectively and quickly. Instead, we see very limited action into the ground. So in this regard, I would say not enough pushing, right? Or to me, I would say pulling is the better way to explain it. But let's say not enough pulling and then overcompensating with the push right here, right? And really losing a lot in the backside mechanics. And while he has good stability within his feet and within his ankles, like I said, he's really relying a lot on his feet and his ankles. The lack of strength within the hip flexors, the lack of range within the quads, it's really what's impacting him here. Oh yeah, deeper shin angle, man. I remember seeing this guy. So the big thing with this is, again, I mean, how are we striking the ground? And there's some of the times, I get videos like this and it's almost like, is this a joke? You know, like, are we really serious about our commitment to what it is we're trying to do? Because I get stuff like this all the time, and people are like, oh, yeah, you know, can you break this down? Can you offer what you do, your expertise, the hours, the years, all the time that you've put into developing yourself, you know, for this is an outsider, when an outsider says this to me, right? You've spent all this time developing yourself, doing all these YouTube videos, making all, you know, I buy all this equipment, I commit so much to being able to help you guys out. Can you do this for free, right? While you send me this. To me, this is not commitment. The reason this is not commitment, and I mean, I'm going to get a little bit into some rants here. This is why I'm doing this, right? This is a platform for me to be able to get into my rants and why some of the times I get pissed off about, you know, the sprinting community. Sorry if I end up, I guess, laughing a little bit here. I want to be as candid as I can, I guess. So this without resistance, whatever, blah, blah, blah. He's talking about his shin angle. He wants to get more shin angles, right? And I don't want to be disrespectful to this particular person. Well, hopefully we'll be able to help him out. But you're not really trying. You know, you're really not trying when you have this, because even if you get into this position, right, and just work, you don't need to be complex. Like, let's not get overly ambitious about the complexities of what you need to do in order to address your shin angle. What I do, right, in order to address this particular thing is I get into this exact position against the wall. I take my arms, I put them on the wall, and then I just work on improving my shin range of motion, right? I keep my knee bent, I go down with my knee, I go up with my knee, go down with my knee, I go up with my knee. At first, I get all types of wobbling within the knee. It feels very unstable because it's a very uncommon position for us to need to be able to get to. I feel a lot of tightness within my Achilles, but after I do 10 of them, 15 of them, it starts to loosen up. Not a super complex thing, right? And that's the point, is like, how serious are we taking it? You know, like, I don't think you need a crazy coaching to be able to do that. Because if you need that, right, if you need a coach to be able to explain something so simple, then you are relying too much on outside influences to be able to dictate whether or not you get the results that you're looking to get to, period. Part of this has to be you are connecting to your body and understanding what is right and what is wrong, and how can I make the adjustments necessary to be able to improve. I have plenty of stuff out there already about, I've released exercise. That exercise I just showed, I have it on my YouTube probably more than 2 or 3 times. You know, I do the same exercises more than once to be able to make it so the information gets to the right person, because there's way too big. The internet is way too big for me to make the video one time and for people to be able to, everybody be able to have access to it, right? Just way too big. There's way too much interaction happening all over the world within YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. So I have to make these videos multiple times to make it so there's a better chance of the people that need to see it actually do see it, right? Obviously, I haven't done it enough, because look at this guy. He still hasn't even seen the exercise. If he saw the exercise, he wouldn't have to send this in, right? And then as we're striking the ground, we can't be going straight down with our foot action, right? Like, this is just not good foot strike. How, if you're here, okay, let's say the goal is to be able to get to this shin angle. I don't want to go this way. I would say typically we want to be able to get into 30 degrees-ish, somewhere in that general position, right? I mean, this is 50, but if we're trying to get closer to 30, and then this action, this position is where we're at, and then from here we don't get any type of backward push, we only get extension of the knee, we know that there's no way that we're going to be able to get to that range, right? All we just did was extend. How are we going to get to that range if we just extended? You know what I'm saying? Like, we have to be able to watch our videos and see, okay, this is what I need to be able to do. And this is what I say even within my program, you know, like, I want to be able to make it so you don't need me to help you in improving, right? And this isn't helping either. You know, this doesn't help because we don't have the fundamentals down within the running, okay? The sled runs can help you, but the sled runs don't help if you don't have the right mechanics within the start, okay? So as you're doing this, we can't be thinking about, oh, I'm just trying to pull this sled as hard as I can, right? We need to be thinking about foot position, toe position, body alignment, right? When I'm striking the ground, what am I doing as I'm striking the ground, okay? If we do all that, that is going to be the difference between you actually improving and not improving. A bit of a of a tangent. Here's top speed. I'm not a big fan of the wickets here, just in general, just to let you guys know. Just haven't had great experiences with it. I would rather, I think it trains you to be a little bit too vertical with your force production or how your foot's striking the ground. I understand that a lot of the information out there shows that at top speed we are getting mostly vertical force into the ground, but the reality is we are building horizontal force at the beginning, and the way to be able to measure horizontal force is based off of the speed of the object. So we're starting at 0 miles per hour. Okay, let's say we build to 20 miles per hour. Well, now that this object is moving 20 miles an hour, and if we're measuring horizontal force by how fast this person is moving, okay, well, all of that that happened from 0 to 20, all the muscles that were being utilized, the acceleration mechanics necessary to be able to get to 20 miles an hour, everything that took us from 0 to 20 is still being utilized. That those muscles, those mechanics are still being transmitted through the body. But now we're at that 20 miles per hour. So now we're really talking about holding or even continuing to build the top speed. So if we're measuring from 20 miles per hour how much horizontal force is in the ground by how fast this object is moving, these forces are going to be going down regardless of whether or not there is horizontal action within the body. Okay, so essentially what this means is that horizontal forces get you to 20 miles an hour. They will continue, they'll get you 21 miles an hour, they'll get you 22 miles an hour. Horizontal actions, right? The movements that take you to accelerate are going to be continued to be acted upon. It does end up being transmitted into vertical force because now our body is at those speeds that we built ourselves up to. But that doesn't mean that the muscles and the body actions necessary for us to build the speed are taking out of context. They're not being utilized anymore. They are still being utilized. The same muscles, the same actions are still being used as we build speed. Okay. So the reason I say all that is because we still need to be able to be great at horizontal action, especially because when we measure is based off of steps. People will always tell you, like, let's even say for 80 meters to 100 meters, right? You take two people, you take one person that's 6'1", another person that's 6'1", right? Or the same person 2 times over again. Within those last 20 meters, let's say we have one person take 9 steps and another person take 10 steps. Same person, same height, blah, blah, blah. Which one's faster, right? You would assume 9 steps, right? You take a step out. Well, in order for us to cover more distance, what's the differentiator? The horizontal action, right? That's what makes it so we cover more distance per step, not vertical action, right? Because you can get more vertical and be taking 10 steps, right? It would almost be, that getting maybe too vertical and not enough horizontal would get you to 10 steps, right? But also being too horizontal and not vertical would also get you to 10 steps. So it's the right combination of vertical and horizontal, which is what gets you to your top speed and what makes it so you can be amongst the fastest in the world. So that's what I would say this person's missing, right? There's a lot of good things that he's doing from a vertical standpoint within the run. He's missing his horizontal action, especially within the right leg. He's limited. Look at how fast he gets his right leg through, but now he just goes straight down the ground. So it's all vertical force. So we get 0 distance here. Look at how when his foot's coming off the ground, I always do this too. Like I'll compare the ranges of different people, right? So when his foot's coming off the ground, let's say that's about where his hip's at. It's hard to say for sure where the ranges are here, okay? But we have this action, and then we can try to compare this to Noah Lyles. Again, it's hard to be able to say 100%. I would say it's closer to 120, 125, something like that when we look at Noah Lyles in comparison to the athlete here, okay, in terms of overall hip extension. Does a great job getting his foot through, has plenty of range of motion. And then also I would say he's limited in the extension within his lower back, right? Needs to be able to get extension in really the mid back, lower back, hips, everything can get better with extension. Okay, can treat the form. Obviously better if this is a 40-yard dash, if this athlete's looking to get better at the 40-yard dash, is actually better to be getting out of a 3-point stance. I like the shin angle here as you're pushing off. I like the foot position here as you're pushing off. I think you're doing a good job of being able to get your legs up and through. Again, not enough horizontal force here. Okay, at this point now we have to start opening up the stride and doing that by being able to really create more reach, right? You get plenty of height within the legs here. We're just too much straight down into the ground. So therefore, we're not going to be able to generate as much force as necessary to be able to generate the right amount of horizontal action. Or if we are, that's going to be happening with the foot too far back behind. So we're not going to get the right vertical forces. Therefore, we're going to take too many steps and not run as good of a time, right? And this is why the athlete's having a hard time getting his hips through. And I would even say as he gets going, starts landing too far back in his foot, or potentially doesn't stabilize well within the foot and doesn't get the maximum height, ends up again taking just too many steps within his run. I mean, there's a lot of things that he does well within, especially the acceleration. It still has great turnover, pretty good turnover, but the difference between elite speed and, above average speed or really good speed is, it's the ability to go from acceleration phase to your top end speed, right? For some people, right? Like there's a lot of different ways that ends up being transmitted. For some people, it ends up being your acceleration, your ability to get to top speed. For some people, it is the start, how well they're able to make improvements within the start. For some people, it's the range of all of them. Some people it ends up being strength. It always kind of depends, but really getting specific, I would say it's the concept of deliberate practice, right? Not everybody is going to follow under the same umbrella. We're actually going to, a lot of times, have a lot of different types of umbrellas that we fall under, and being able to understand where we are in comparison to where we need to be, and therefore figure out a plan to be able to really maximize your speed is what I'm trying to be able to build, right? Is a program that gives you all the information that you need to be able to get specific into where you can make the biggest improvement and get that one thing better and be able to build off of that one thing and make that something that you continually do over a long period of time. So this person's kind of funny. They go and they start with same arm, same leg with their running. Okay, so if you start like that, you're off. So it becomes much more difficult to critique everything. Okay, so now you got everything correct, or you got the arms correct. I would just say way too high with the arms, way too high with the elbows, way too much time spent on the ground. We got to be able to be an athlete here, right? Like if this is your start, you need to be an athlete, right? Just be a better athlete would be my first critique, right? And then from there, let's get faster with the arm swing, be quick with the arm swing. Let's not spend so much time on the ground. Push-up acceleration, I'm not big on this type of stuff. Like, I guess why are we doing it, right? What makes push-up acceleration, especially for 15 meters? I don't know. Like, I just don't see that as being like a super effective workout. Maybe one time to be able to help you with a horizontal action. But if you think this is a workout, I don't think it's really benefiting you too much. I mean, there's some good things that you're doing, though, within the start. I think that where you might be putting a little bit too much focus on your acceleration phase and how well you are accelerating and not enough on your top speed and your ability to really maximize your top speed. You have plenty of range of motion in the front side mechanics and you have really strong quads. It doesn't seem like you're utilizing the ankles fully. It doesn't seem like you're able to get into your top speed and being able to maintain your top speed at a very high level. I obviously can't see that, but just based off of looking at that, it doesn't seem like your issue is acceleration as much as it is top speed and being able to maintain top speed and being able to build your top speed. Yeah, so maybe just I would say get more comfortable with your position. I don't know. It's hard to tell from the back, but it just doesn't seem like you're very comfortable right here. I think this first foot is too far back from your hands, and so your arms are a little bit too far out in front of you. And then your first movement here, we just have way too much of a forward lean as the foot's striking the ground. We don't have enough arm action. We got to get this elbow all the way up and through. We got to get those hips back. We got to be patient with our ability to get our hips through, right? And so what I mean by that is we don't want to be too fast popping up our head, popping up our chest, and not fast with getting our hips through. Okay, so let's make sure that we're getting our hips all the way forward, all the way through, and really putting a high level of priority on that, and therefore being patient in the amount of time that we're going to let that happen, and not be in a rush to get our chest up and get our spine up, and therefore deprioritizing our hips, and therefore being impatient with how much time we're going to give our hips to be able to fully get involved in our running. Okay. Not enough ankle action as well. I mean, obviously a beginner, like you have a long way to go. I don't know how old you are, but you got a long way to go. Okay, 60 meter. I mean, looks like you popped up a little bit too much here from that first step, crossing over a little too much with the arms. Left arm's coming over across a little too much at the very beginning, not getting high enough within the elbows, way too fast with the head popping up. Like the backside mechanics, a lot of things are doing good with the push off. Looks like we just need to be able to improve our foot strike, how our left foot's coming around, right? You can see how as that foot's coming through, we're letting that foot go off to the side a little bit too much. We're really losing the integrity within the ankle right there. It almost looks like your foot is falling off right here. You can tell how little amount of force is actually being held within the ankle by the fact that your left ankle almost looks like it's detached from your body right here. And therefore, again, you're not going to be able to generate very much force in the ground. There should be a lot of ankle stiffness as you're going through. Okay, you end up getting your foot back into not a bad position as you strike the ground, but there's just not going to be a lot of force there because it was so loose as you're coming through. Your right leg's a little bit better with that regard, and therefore you generate better force out of the right leg, but you're not going to be able to make up for the inability that from your left leg to cycle through until you actually address your ankle strike top end speed form. I always like looking at top end speed the most. A lot of good things that we see here within this athlete. Frontside mechanics look pretty good. I would say that as we're landing now, as we build our top speed, we want to be able to put an emphasis on maximizing the combination of force production, right? So being able to create force both down in the ground and horizontally within the legs, right? Really good job of being able to do both. But we want to be able to maximize that, okay, with overall height. Okay, so you got to be taller if possible, okay? And also maintaining our hips forward, okay? So what happens is as we generate more force down and back, our body's going to want to shrink down, our hips are going to want to fall back a little bit more behind us, okay? And therefore, we are going to lose body position. Well, as we start to be able to get our height higher and our hips more forward, we're going to lose the amount of horizontal force and vertical force our body can, I guess, naturally or comfortably create. And so we want to be able to kind of work within that area and be able to continue to get better and better at that very action, right? Being able to generate horizontal force and vertical force, maintain height, keep those hips forward, and run high or run at a high speed and keep that action, and just be able to do that for as long as you can, right? First, you might be able to do it for 1 step, 2 steps, try to make it so you get into 5 or 6 steps, then get to 10 steps. And really, I would say the goal would be able to do that for 20 steps, right? Be able to have great height within the hips height within the hips is really how I define it, but it would be great height and keeping the hips forward while being able to generate that large amount of force in the ground, essentially holding your top speed. As soon as you start to feel your hips falling back, you're losing your top speed, period. Yeah, so you got to just be able to maintain that position. That's what Noah Lyles does at a very high level, is maintain those hips coming all the way through. That should really help you out here, whoever this athlete was. We have another start. Again, here we want to go in a 3-point stance instead of a 4-point stance. I like the foot position, though. Good acceleration, good low heel recovery, a little too high with the foot coming back behind. I think that's going to end up being the biggest thing. We're too high with the foot behind, too high with the arms behind, right? We need to be able to do a better job being able to get the foot all the way up and through. Again, another person that could probably build off of his top end speed. Like his top end speed is probably the bigger issue, not his start. All right, so we have the next one here, another block start. And I mean, I like the angle. This would be, if you're going to video from this particular angle, we'd really want to be looking specifically at like those first kind of 2, maybe 3 steps. This is a little bit more slow motion. What I would like to see when looking at this would be much more action out of the hips, right? So we see in slow motion, there's a lot of movement happening within the head, within the neck, even within the wrist. Not a lot of action happening within this front knee, and not a lot of action happening within the hips and within that back foot, right? So when you're slowing down like this, we'd like to really be able to see and isolate that type of, I guess, detail within the run. It looks like you do a pretty good job of getting the foot through. I don't love necessarily the toe position as the foot striking the ground. Just looking at general muscle tone, I would say we need much more strength within the lower half. Okay, those guys that are really explosive when it comes to their start just have a lot of strength. You could tell within their ankles, within their shins, and therefore able to generate a lot of explosive power. This guy looks like he has a pretty long stride. I don't know if he's 200, 400 meter type of an athlete, but definitely something that I would consider if you're looking to get more explosive would be definitely building up the strength within that lower half of the leg. I invested in a tripod to help me film better. It's a hilarious thing to say to me, right? Like, I invested in a tripod. Again, 3-point stance instead of a 4-point stance. Really doing a good job driving through there. I like that arm position. I would say just need to open up the front side mechanics. I just see it so often, just not understanding how to use the foot, how to use the ankle. I mean, look at the ankle as we're coming through here. You almost have there's just no height, right? You could tell the ankle is placing too much downward. So we don't get any height within the foot, within the ankle. We don't have any dorsiflexion in the ankle. Then as our foot's striking the ground, we're really not going to be able to get that foot action, right? You almost want to think about it like when you watch like jaguars or deer or, any of those four-legged animals when they're running. You could see what they do with their foot and how they like get their foot down and they like really use their claw almost to like push themselves forward. That's why they have like those hooves to make it so they could like get that action, right? And that's what we want to see when you're running is we want to see like you're digging back with that foot. Okay, this isn't a dig. This is a strike down into the ground, right? We don't get that dig action here, and therefore you get stuck with the foot back behind. I would say, it's hard to say actually with the wrist. Yeah, the wrist doesn't look bad. The arm action I think is pretty good. Could maybe get the elbows through a little bit better. Obviously, those are just the first few steps there. But I mean, there's a lot of good things within that start. Right. Again, I would say to keep, unless you have the blocks, right? And maybe since you invested in a tripod, I would invest in some blocks as well, because if you don't have blocks, then it's better to have the 3-point stance. All right. Good action there out of the block. Good foot drive. Yeah, we're not getting very much distance per step. We need to be able to get more horizontal action out of the legs. Probably a little bit limited with the ability to create a lot of knee bend, right? So to me, I would say probably strengthening the hamstrings, the Nordic hamstring curls, straight leg curls, all those types of things would help. Just even reverse Nordics would be beneficial just to help out with opening up the quad. All those types of things would be good. Even getting into like Supermans and creating better extension within the back, all that type of stuff I think will be helpful in being able to better get into your top speed and really be able to really maximize the start. I mean, I tell people this a lot where it's like, when you're starting here, it's important to run a better or improve your 10-meter fly, let's say, if we're going to time the 10-meter fly. But at the end of the day, if you're running 11.2, we want to get closer to 11, right? So let's say you're running 1.85.10. It might not be as beneficial to get to a 1.82.10 to really, in comparison to maintaining a 1.85.10 meter, first 10 meter, but getting that 1.85.10 meter into a position that's better helping you get to a faster top speed, right? So maintaining your 10-meter fly, okay, but using that 10 meters to better assist you to running a 11-second 100 by correcting the positions that your body's in during that initial 10 meters. There's a lot. This is a big thing for the 40, right? Being able to not put so much on how fast you run that first 10 yards, right? Because there's a lot of coaches too that, I mean, I'm one of them with the amount of space that I have, right? You don't have the ability to run a full 40, especially in LA, like the real estate needed to really get a 40-yard dash, a full 40-yard dash doesn't, unless you're doing it way more often, it's hard for it to pay for itself. It doesn't make business sense for that. Okay. And so, you'd almost have to be able to get multiple different sports to be really focusing on it. You can't just really do the 40-yard dash. So because of that, a lot of coaches just train so much in the 10-yard dash because you don't have the space to be able to fully open up, right? I mean, I don't have the space to fully open up either, but what I do is I utilize the curved treadmill to make it so we could still get top end speed and then occasionally go to fields or tracks to make it so we can work on that transition phase, or also use the sleds to be able to work on the transition phase, acceleration, drive phase, top end speed, transition, right? Acceleration, drive, transition are going to be after 10 yards, right? I mean, really closer probably to 5 to about 25 yards when it comes to the 40, and then it's going to be closer to like 40, 50 meters when it comes to the 100-yard or 100-meter dash. Okay, so if you don't have the space, now you have to be able to utilize the curve to work on top end speed. So for this person, I would work much more on his top end speed and allow him to, as he gets the concepts down, feel the difference between what he's doing within his first 10 that's really slowing him down to make it so then he can better utilize those first few steps to make it so he can get to his top end speed more effectively, therefore run a faster 100. Used to take 7 steps to 10 meters, but lately I've been noticing I take 8. So he's taking more steps. I mean, first I would say the head position, right? Like we are just way too much action with the head as we're getting started here. And foot contact time is a little bit too long. What I would argue is he may have spent too much time getting too strong in his hips in comparison to the strength that he has within his let's call it calves and anterior tibs, or we could just say ankles. And because of the difference between the strength now within the calves and within the ankles, he's now not able to get off the ground as quickly. So now the foot ends up being further back behind. Because the foot ends up being further back behind, he's not able to transition as cleanly through because he's not able to transition as well, right? The foot's too far back behind. Now he's not able to get, and even within the squats, he might have lost some range of motion within the quads, within the hip flexors. Now he's not able to generate or pick up as much distance in his first 7 or 8 steps. Okay. Could be a thing. Don't know for sure. I don't know what his training regimen is, but based off of how he's running, that could be what ended up happening. I don't know if this was him when he was running more steps. So it must be. Okay. So this was him out of a 2-point stance now. Yeah. So it does a better job of being able to get his knees through, legs through, right? Definitely in that position. We want the conditions to be similar to what it is that we're going to be performing in. So we're not going to be performing in barefoot. Sometimes I run barefoot to be able to see how my foot reacts to striking the ground. And I think that's beneficial to be able to understand what I need to be able to do training wise to be able to potentially get some more range of motion, work on particular balance type of actions, whether that be laterally, rotationally, or sagittally, 3 different planes of motion. But I never look at my foot landing and try to get advice when it comes to my sprinting mechanics because it is different. Okay. You're going to naturally not generate as much force in the ground in a protection mechanism because of the grip. Okay. You're going to naturally end up with your foot back behind you because you don't have the same stability within your foot as you do within shoes. That's why we wear shoes, right? Even within tennis shoes, right? The reason we wear spikes when we're in the 100 is because we have more stability with spikes than we do tennis shoes. We have more stability in tennis shoes than we do barefoot. It wouldn't do us any good to even really look at that in any type of mechanical way other than potentially the arms, okay? Because the difference, we talk about deliberate practice, okay? Deliberate practice means we need to be focusing on the most important parts within our running, right? Or sprinting or mechanics, whatever ends up being the most important to you within your particular sprinting form or sprinting style. Well, the only way that we could really do that is by getting specific into your sprinting when you are in a position that can actually transfer the information that we're learning into performing. Okay, so if you're running barefoot, but you're going to be performing in spikes, that is not going to set us up for if we don't want to be looking at that from a technique perspective, because that would take us away from the deliberate practice, okay? And would really take us away from when we come to training, what would be the most important things to be focusing on within the brain, within the body to make it so we can get the best result, because it wouldn't, again, it doesn't transfer over the same because you're running barefoot in comparison to running with spikes. We need to see that information with spikes. I don't like the 4-point stance. We need to be in a 3-point stance. If we were in blocks, I would say your feet or your shin angle is way too low. That front shin angle is way too low. We need to get those hips way higher up so we can actually generate force out of that first step. And again, therefore, because of that very position, now your whole acceleration is off. So this doesn't translate nearly as well. Okay, you do a good job of really overcoming your bad position that you got into by really correcting vertical force angles, which therefore probably means that you're just running very, very slow out of your get-go here because you're trying so hard to generate so much force vertically. right? You're trying to overcome how horizontal your setup was by overdoing vertical force. And even if you do have a good start here, there's no way you're going to be able to hold your top speed because it takes way too much effort for you to just get to your top speed. So therefore, it's going to be a lot easier for you to get to your top speed and start to wither down because you just use too much energy. You're not using your body in a way that's going to really set yourself up to perform at a high level. And this is where, I mean, I'm going to try to readjust my mentality here because I just lose patience with some of this stuff. Like if you're training, you got to be training correctly, man. Like stop training without intent. Stop training yourself to be worse. I know there's just so many people out there that are doing. That's why I do what I do. It's just frustrating. Frustrating to see people that just don't understand the basics. It shouldn't be that difficult to understand. You look at yourself and you look at the top athletes, right? Like you should see the difference between your hips and their hips. Like your hips are way more flat here. Like this is not, there's no guy that sets up like this. There's actually some in like the 40. There's those guys that end up being a little bit more flat back, but no one has blocks that sits up like this. It just doesn't happen. This is where the frustration obviously comes in because it's like, obviously I believe that person could benefit from my coaching, but the true issue is you have to understand that in order for you to get better, here we go, 14.29, right? Like if there's somebody that needs my freaking help, it's somebody that's running 14.29. Look at your arms, dude. Look at your arms swinging side to side. There's no way you're going to run fast with your arms moving like that. You're moving your arms this way while your legs are moving in a completely different direction. You're strong. You have the ability to be able to run a lot faster. You have to be much more coordinated. You need a coach to help you get there. Sign up for my program. That's the sale on that, and that's the reality of the situation. And it's not about anything other than just the reality, right? Like if you want to be able to go from good to great, you're going to have to change where you're currently at. What I do, I'm not necessarily the person that's going to have the most amazing programming, right? I really try to get away from the programming the best that I can to really emphasize the technique, right? To really put an emphasis on how do we want to approach programming? How do we want to approach practice? How do we want to approach it, events, right? And really get in the mentality where you're set up in a framework that's going to lead to success, right? If you can get yourself in the mentality of being able to perform at the highest level, then you're going to be able to see great improvements by just addressing what it is that you are working on, and therefore have a lot of confidence in your ability to improve, right? And then also being able to get consistent improvement. Okay, that's where, to me, we want to be able to really isolate your development as an athlete, right? Consistent improvement, isolate the areas to improve, right? And let's get objective with it. Let's get objective improvements, whether it's sprinting, whether it's jumping, whether it is weight gain, right? All those times, whether it's how far you can throw a football, let's get objective, okay? Here we got a basketball player. Yeah, just really trying to do a lot of reaching. Right? Great distance per step. Excellent distance per step. We need faster turnover. We can't get stuck with our arms back here, right? This is way too stuck with your arm back here. At this point, we don't need your arm this far back. We need this elbow to come forward and maybe more up. We don't need this arm to be this far back. We need to be getting quicker through, getting our hips through. You're definitely fast and definitely have a lot of potential, but you got to be able to be much more quick than fast, right? A lot of basketball players are in that kind of group here. This is probably going to be the last one. Looks like, even if it's not, this is going to be the last one for me. I'm just, I've seen enough for today. Yeah, this is a good start. At least we're ending up on a good one. Hips through, hips through, hips through. Why are we getting stuck? Yeah, so we're not getting our hips through enough. So now we start landing with our foot back, or we start landing with our weight too far back behind. Okay, now that we're trying to build speed without getting our hips forward. Now that we're stuck now with the hips behind, we're not going to be able to get as much force in the ground, right? In order to really maximize your force in the ground, we have to be able to get full range of motion within the hips, okay? Or full range, full height within the hips, okay? Because we're taking away those vectors, right? Especially the shorter the athlete is. Okay, so the shorter the athlete is, the less vector length that we're going to have, therefore the less amount of force that we could generate in the ground, right? So from foot to other side of pendulum, right, it would be hip, okay? We want this foot to generate as much force down into the ground as we possibly can. Well, the higher we get this, the more length, then the more force we can get here. Okay, so now what happens is if you're already shorter, you don't have as much, but now your hip's getting down and back, right? So now we don't have as much range to be able to pull here. Okay, so as we're getting going, right, we want to really be able to overemphasize hips coming forward or hips coming through and really generating that pull, that horizontal force, and continuing to generate that pull, because it's hard to pull back with your leg and keep your hip forward, right? Because as you want to, you're both things want to pull back, right? So as you're building speed, you got to be pulling back and really pushing that hip forward so we can continue to build speed and build that leg cycle and make that a comfortable place to be at. Because once you're at your top speed, you can't lift those hips up now. There's some people that even say when you get to your top speed, now you can kind of sit down, right? There's like people that cue that. Oh, yeah, now sit into your top speed. I'm not big on that, but the concept makes sense if you're getting your hips all the way through, and then you can kind of sit into a running speed or a running position where now you can just maximize turnover. It's not a bad theory to it, but you have to maximize getting your hips through first, right? So that theory would, what you're assuming there is that the athlete is almost too tall or doing such a great job of getting tall, and by sitting down a little bit more, they could help maybe open up their stride length. I don't know what would be the big reason to do that, but or being able to just relax out within their stride, probably more of a long distance type of a runner if you're going to cue them to sit down or sit back. But the point being is we have to be able to get your hips all the way forward. You got to be able to get your hips all the way through in order to run faster. I hope this ended up being beneficial for you. I definitely talked a lot. I got a lot off of my chest. I feel better being able to talk about this. I hope that you guys got a lot of benefit from this. There's a lot of information that you can get from watching this. I hope part of it, the value that you get is realizing how little you know about sprinting and sprinting mechanics. Just having this conversation actually the other day with one of my close friends, and he was talking to me about he's a great athlete, ran 4.4 in the 40. He might have got down to 4.3 in the 40. He was talking about being able to get to the 4.3 and how much research he was doing to try to figure out how to be able to make it happen. And, just kind of talking to him, I basically told him, like, you wouldn't have been the type of client that I would want, because I don't want to have somebody that I need to get into back and forth with about anything that has to do with your philosophy, I guess, when it comes to sprinting, right? Like the concept within my sprinting philosophy, or I am the sprinting coach. I'm looking at this in a very biomechanical way. I'm looking at it a very objective way. And therefore, just like when it comes to playing football, right, as a football coach, you don't want your football players to tell you how to be a football coach. This is what I do, right? Like, I know what I'm looking for. Yeah, I want to get feedback, and I'll ask for feedback all the time, but it's not about being able to go back and forth in philosophy, right? Like I want to help you as an athlete. In order for that to happen, there has to be trust there. And if there isn't trust, then you really shouldn't be in the program at all, right? So hopefully by watching this, you could potentially realize how much more there is to sprinting, how much more information there's out there when it comes to sprinting, and how much better you need to get within the mechanics, and therefore realizing that a mechanics coach can really help you bridge that gap. I might not necessarily be that person for you, right? I'm not saying that I have to be that person for you, but I am saying that there's a lot of athletes out there that are missing the boat when it comes to their mechanics, and they think that this is something that they could just put onto Reddit or a whatever Instagram post or whatever and just say, oh yeah, can I get some type of mechanics help, and can you critique my form or whatever, and are therefore devaluing. Right. If you're looking for a free value when it comes to that, you're devaluing how important it is for you to actually improve your mechanic, right? Because if you think that just by putting some information out there or some videos out there and even getting some critique back of your sprinting, right? Every single one of these people from this information, while they may see some short-term improvements, will not be able to reach their maximum potential unless they fully commit to their mechanics improvement and really get a third-party view to help them get there, right? When I want to get a business coach, right, help me build my business, I don't tell them how to do business, right? They're a business coach. That's what they do, right? I come to them with my business needs and where I have my revenue and where I put my time and my marketing strategies and all that type of stuff. And based off of that information, they say, focus on this, offer this particular solution or this particular product or this particular service based off the information I know or they know, and the ability to be able to build, right? And it's the same type of thing, right? And I wouldn't be able to really, as much as that would help me from today, I wouldn't be able to continue to get to the next level unless you continue to reinvest in yourself. And that's the big thing that I would say is continue to invest in yourself, continue to invest in your mechanics, continue to put a priority on the development within the mechanics. And I think that's the secret and the main thing that you have to do in order to go from good to great and to get you to where it is you want to get to. So again, like, subscribe, share, send over some, would it be donation? I don't even know how you would call it. Send over whatever it is that you can do. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.